There are moments in life when the weight of the world feels too heavy to carry, when the storm around you is so loud, you can barely hear your own heartbeat. You've prayed, you've tried, you've fought with everything you have, and yet the rain keeps falling. In those dark and silent moments, it's easy to wonder, does anyone even see me? But here's the truth that changed my life and the lives of millions. God sees you. Not just the strong version of you. He sees you in your lowest, most broken, most desperate moment, and He has not looked away. Your struggle is not a sign of His absence. It is the very place where His presence is most powerful. Every storm you've survived has not defeated you. It has defined you. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to keep moving forward even when you cannot see the shore. The resilience you are searching for is not something you need to build from scratch. It is already inside you, placed there by a God who knew every storm you would face before you were even born. Today, we are going to discover together how to stop running from the storm and start finding God and yourself right in the middle of it. God sees you. Not the version of you that has everything together, not the version that smiles through the pain and tells everyone, "I'm fine." He sees the real you, the one who cries in the car before walking into work, the one who lies awake at 3 in the morning with a mind full of worries and a heart full of questions, the one who has been carrying a burden so heavy for so long that you've almost forgotten what it feels like to breathe without it. You don't have to perform for God. You don't have to dress your pain up in pretty words or pretend that your faith never wavers. He already knows. He already sees. And still, He has not moved. There is something deeply powerful about being truly seen. In a world where we are constantly judged by our output, our appearance, and our ability to hold it all together, most of us walk through life feeling fundamentally invisible. We share highlights but hide our heartbreaks. We post our victories but bury our defeats. We become so skilled at wearing masks that sometimes we forget there is a real face underneath. But God has never been fooled by the mask. From the very moment you took your first breath, He has known every thought you would think, every tear you would cry, and every night you would spend wondering if things would ever get better. What makes this even more remarkable is when He sees you. Not just on your good days, not just when your faith is strong and your prayers feel powerful and everything seems to be falling into place. He sees you on the days when you don't even have the words to pray. He sees you when your belief is hanging by a thread. He sees you when you've made mistakes you're ashamed of, when you've gone down roads you shouldn't have, when you feel so far from who you wanted to be that you can't even imagine finding your way back. It is precisely in those moments, your most broken, most vulnerable, most desperate moments, that His gaze does not waver. He does not look away. Think about the people in your life who have truly seen you. Not the curated version, but the real you, and chose to stay anyway. Think about how rare that is. Think about how safe it felt, how healing it was, just to be known without being judged. Now multiply the feeling by infinity, and you will begin to touch the edges of what it means to be seen by God. His vision of you is not filtered through disappointment or frustration. It is not clouded by impatience. He looks at you with the full knowledge of every flaw you carry and every mistake you've made, and He still calls you worthy. He still calls you loved. He still calls you His. Your pain has not gone unnoticed. Every sacrifice you have made that no one applauded, every night you held yourself together for the sake of others while falling apart on the inside, every time you chose to keep going when everything in you wanted to stop, it was all witnessed. Not by the world, perhaps. The world may have overlooked you. The world may have underestimated you. The world may have walked right past you in your darkest hour without even slowing down. But heaven did not miss a single moment. There is a record of your resilience that goes far beyond what any human eye has ever captured, and it is held by the one whose opinion matters most. And here is where it gets even deeper, because understanding that God sees your pain is only the beginning. It's not just that he watches from a distance with sympathy in his eyes. It's that his seeing you means something. It leads somewhere. It carries weight and intention and purpose far beyond what we can immediately understand. Because a God who sees never simply observes, he acts. He moves. He works. And often, he works in ways we don't recognize until we're standing on the other side of the storm, looking back at all the moments we thought we were alone. And that is the moment. Standing on the other side, when you begin to realize something that changes everything. The storm that you were so desperate to escape, the season that felt like it was swallowing you whole, the chapter of your life that you would have skipped if you'd had the choice. It did not end you. You are still here. And not just surviving, you are standing, breathing, speaking. Which means that everything the storm threw at you, every wave that crashed over your head, every moment you were certain you couldn't take another step, none of it had the final word. The storm did not write your ending. You are still writing it. We live in a world that has a deeply distorted relationship with struggle. We are conditioned to see pain as failure, to treat hardship as punishment, and to measure the quality of our lives by how little suffering we experience. So when the storm comes, and it always comes, our first instinct is to assume something has gone terribly wrong. We ask why. We search for someone to blame. We bargain and beg and demand to know when it will be over. But what if we have been asking the wrong questions all along? What if the storm is not evidence that your life has gone off course, but proof that you are being trusted with a journey that requires more than average strength? Every single person who has ever built something meaningful, lived something extraordinary, or become someone that others draw courage from, has walked through a storm that tried to convince them to quit. Not some of them. All of them. The great men and women of faith whose stories have echoed through centuries were not people who lived charmed, uninterrupted lives of peace and blessing. They were people who were tested beyond what seemed fair. They were people who lost things they loved, waited longer than seemed reasonable, and faced opposition that seemed impossible to overcome. And yet, they did not stop. Because somewhere deep in their spirit, they knew that a trial with a timeline is not a life sentence. This is one of the most liberating truths you will ever hold on to. Your storm has an expiration date. It may not feel that way right now. When you are in the middle of it, when the winds are at their highest and the visibility is at its lowest, it can feel eternal. It can feel like this is simply what your life is now, like the darkness has moved in permanently, and the light is nothing more than a memory. But feelings are not facts. Seasons change. It is the most consistent, reliable, unstoppable truth in all of nature. Winter does not negotiate with spring. It simply ends. And no matter how long your winter has lasted, it is not exempt from that law. What the storm does leave behind, however, is permanent. Not the pain fades. Not the fear loses its grip. What remains is something far more valuable than comfort ever could have produced. There is a kind of strength that only adversity can manufacture. There is a depth of character that only pressure can create. There is a compassion for other people's suffering that you can only develop by having suffered yourself. Every scar you carry is a certification, proof that you faced something real, that it hurt, and that you did not let it have the final word. The storm strips away everything that was never truly yours to keep, and what is left standing when it passes is the truest, most unshakable version of who you are. So, if you are in the middle of your storm right now, hear this clearly. Your story is not over. In fact, some of the most powerful chapters of your life have not yet been written. The pain you are feeling today is not the conclusion. It is the tension before the breakthrough, the silence before the declaration, the darkest part of the night that always, always comes just before the dawn. And what carries you from where you are now to where you are destined to be is something that cannot be manufactured by willpower alone, something that goes beyond positive thinking and personal discipline, something that must be chosen again and again even when it makes no logical sense. And that something, that invisible, unshakable force that keeps you moving when every logical reason to continue is run out, is faith. Not faith as a feeling. Not faith as an emotion that rises and falls with your circumstances. Not the kind of faith that only shows up when life is good and the answers are clear and the path ahead is lit. But faith as a decision. Faith as a daily, deliberate, sometimes agonizing choice to trust in something greater than what you can currently see. This is the kind of faith that has carried every great soul through every impossible season, and it is the only kind that was ever real to begin with. We have been sold a distorted picture of what faith is supposed to look like. Somewhere along the way, we began to believe that true faith means never doubting, never struggling, never lying on the floor of your life wondering if God is still listening. We began to treat our moments of weakness as spiritual failure, as if the trembling in our hands during the storm was proof that our belief wasn't real enough. But that is not faith. That is performance. And God has never asked you for a performance. He has asked you for your heart, the real one, the scared one, the one that shows up anyway even when it is terrified. The disciples who walked on water were the same ones who sometimes sank. And still, they were called. Think about the last time you did something that required real courage. Not recklessness, courage. The moment you chose to keep going even though you were exhausted. The moment you decided to forgive even though the wound was still fresh. The moment you got back up after a failure that had every reason to be final. In that moment, you were not operating from a place of strength. You were operating from a place of choice. You chose forward motion over paralysis. You chose trust over fear. That is exactly what faith looks like in its purest, most human form. It is not the absence of doubt. It is the decision to move despite it. Faith is a muscle. And like every muscle in your body, it does not grow in comfort. It grows under resistance. It develops through repetition. It is built in the moments when you are pushed beyond what feels manageable, and you reach for something deeper than your own ability. Every time you chose to pray when prayer felt pointless, every time you chose to believe when belief felt foolish, every time you chose to hold on when letting go would have been so much easier. You were doing the most important work of your life. You were training. You were building something inside of you that no external circumstance could ever take away, because it was forged in the fire of real experience. And here is what no one tells you about a muscle that has been properly trained: memory. Your faith remembers every storm it has carried you through. It remembers every time the provision came at the last moment. Every time the door opened when the hallway felt endless. Every time the strength arrived just when you were certain you had nothing left. That memory becomes your foundation. It becomes the ground you stand on when the next storm rolls in and the doubts begin to whisper that this time is different, that this time you won't make it through. You look back at your own history, your own personal testimony of survival, and you say, "Not today," because you have been here before. And you made it. But let's be completely honest about something, because real faith requires real honesty. There will be seasons when you are doing everything right, praying, believing, trusting, showing up, and it will still feel like nothing is moving. The silence will be so loud it almost sounds like an answer. You will look at your circumstances and struggle to find a single visible sign that your faith is producing anything at all. And in those seasons, the temptation to give up will not come loudly. It will come quietly, disguised as reason, disguised as wisdom, disguised as the very practical suggestion that perhaps it is time to stop believing in something you cannot see. It is in exactly that moment, that silent, still, seemingly fruitless moment, that the most important thing is not what you feel, but what you have come to understand about the nature of suffering itself, because suffering, when you truly understand it, is never random. It is never accidental. It is never a cosmic mistake that slipped through the cracks of an otherwise ordered universe. Every moment of pain that has ever touched your life, every loss, every failure, every betrayal, every season of lack, every door that closed in your face, every dream that seemed to die before it ever had the chance to breathe, none of it arrived without purpose. This is perhaps the hardest truth to hold onto when you are in the middle of your darkest night, but it is also the most transformative. The moment you stop seeing your suffering as something happening to you and begin seeing it as something working for you, everything changes. Not the circumstances, not the pain, but the way you carry it. And the way you carry it changes everything. There is a process happening inside you during your most painful seasons that you cannot see with the naked eye. Just as a seed buried in the ground looks like nothing from the outside, just darkness, just soil, just silence. Something extraordinary is taking place beneath the surface. Roots are forming. Foundation is being laid. Strength is being built in the hidden places that will one day hold the weight of everything you are called to carry. Your suffering is doing the same thing. In the moments when you feel most buried, most forgotten, most invisible to the world around you, God is doing His deepest work. He is not absent in your pain. He is most present in it. He is shaping in the darkness what He intends to display in the light. Think about every person whose story has ever moved you. Every testimony that made you cry. Every biography that made you put the book down for a moment, because the weight of what that person overcame was almost too much to absorb. What made their story powerful was not the blessing. It was the battle that came before it. It was the years of struggle, the moments of near collapse, the seasons of profound loss that made the eventual breakthrough not just impressive but meaningful. Their pain was not a detour from their purpose. It was the very path that led them directly to it. And your pain is no different. Every scar you carry is a sentence in a story that someone else desperately needs to read. Someone is waiting for your testimony. Someone is going to survive their storm because you survived yours. Nothing in your life is wasted. Say that to yourself slowly, because your mind will resist it. It will try to hand you a list of exceptions, the years lost to a wrong relationship, the opportunities missed during a season of depression, the time spent rebuilding after a collapse that never should have happened. But God does not work with waste. He is the ultimate redeemer of broken things, the master architect who takes every shattered piece of your story and works it, all of it, into something that carries more beauty precisely because it was broken. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold, making the fracture lines the most beautiful part of the piece. That is exactly what God does with a life that has been surrendered to Him through suffering. Your cracks are not your shame, they are your gold. And the depth of restoration that is available to you is directly connected to something even more personal, even more specific, even more breathtaking than you may have yet allowed yourself to believe. You were not chosen for an easy life. You were chosen for a meaningful one. Before you ever took your first breath, before the world ever had the chance to label you, limit you, or define you by your circumstances, God looked at the full landscape of your life. Every storm, every struggle, every season of breaking, and He said yes, yes to you. Yes to your story. Yes to the very journey that has brought you, bruised and breathless, to this exact moment. You were not accidentally placed in the middle of your struggle. You were specifically, intentionally, and purposefully chosen for it. Not because God is indifferent to your pain, but because He is absolutely certain of your strength. Think about what it means to be built for something. When an architect designs a structure to withstand a storm, he does not build it weak and hope for the best. He reinforces every beam, strengthens every foundation, and constructs every wall with the full knowledge of what that building will one day face. God has done the same with you. Every experience that has shaped you, every hardship that has tested you, every moment of grief that has hollowed you out and left you feeling empty, it was all part of the construction. You were being reinforced in the places that needed to hold. You were being prepared not for a life of ease, but for a life of extraordinary impact. And the very things that tried to destroy you were unknowingly equipping you for everything you were born to do. Your storm was never the end of your story. It was always the making of it. The resilience inside you is not something you manufactured through sheer willpower or positive thinking. It was placed there by a God who saw every wave before it rose, every wind before it blew, and every moment of darkness before the light went out. He never lost sight of you. He never doubted your ability to make it through. And now, standing here, scarred perhaps, weathered certainly, but unbroken and undeniably still standing, you are the living proof that faith works, that suffering has purpose, and that a God who sees you in the storm will always, without fail, walk you safely through it.